navigation settings and everything that we could not actually get access to back in OBS. But other than that, we are live. You can go here where it says share and then grab the link. And if I paste it into my browser, you can see that we are actually live. So once you're done, all you gotta do, you can just click stop streaming, and it's gonna ask if you are sure you wanna stop streaming. You can just click yes, and that's it.
Okay, is that right? Let's see.
And OBS is a powerful tool for
Make sure this is working. Maybe it's working. Maybe it's not. My channel live. Okay.
OBS is a powerful tool.
All right. Whew. Had technical difficulties. It's been a very long time since I have done any live streaming. So I had to follow a tutorial to figure that out. Um, in the meantime, yeah, so this is going to be a coloring tutorial, if you will, on a Lobo cover. So hopefully um, that will work and everybody will be able to see it. Um, okay, so let me do this to while I am here. Let me let folks know. Let's go back to here. Oops. Shareable link. There we go. Let's put this out to the world so folks know. Let's see here. Doing a little live streaming some comic book coloring. Come by and check it out. All right. Post that. There we go. Okay, about as good as we can get. That's fine. Let me show you what we're going to be doing here. We'll get over to the table. So, hopefully you can still all hear me. This is the Lobo cover. So this is the blank cover. As you can see underneath, this was blank. This is what the real cover looks like. So this is what I drew today. The tape is the blue painter's tape. That's because my drafting table is more vertical, which I prefer to work on for a number of reasons. Back health, but also having, when you work larger, like, comic book size, if you tilt it away, your figures can get stretched out and stuff. So I like to work more vertically, which means you have to tape stuff down. And so this is blue painter's tape. It's made to come off. So as long as I'm slow and careful, it will not damage that cover at all. So now we're going to start coloring. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do. Let me grab my phone. And I'm going to turn on my own live stream just to see. That way, if anybody joins and we have any chat or messages, I'll be able to see that. So I am going to be working with a variety of markers, all kind of alcohol-based markers. These are Copic markers. These are my reds, yellows, oranges, and that's where I'm going to start with. And then I also have a whole other set over here that I got, which are some different ones. They're called like Xushro, Xushro. Was a gift, an Amazon find for a big set of alcohol markers. They work pretty well. They've got a chisel tip and a fine tip, so when you're getting into smaller areas, that's pretty nice. And then because yes, they are color coded and stuff on the caps, I've also have little guides that I've made, so I know exactly what color is what. So I'll be using some of these as well on some of the smaller areas and some other stuff. So I am going to start with the background and work my way forward. And so what I want to do is Lobo is, as you can see here on the cover, a lot of kind of grays, blues, that sort of look. So I'm going to start the background and work forward, and I'm going to do work in some reds, probably some reds and purples will be my plan. And with the Copic markers, I like to work from darkest to lightest. So this is my darkest red color, and I am going to start there. So I'm going to do trying to decide, do I want to go dark to light or dark to light or dark to light? Um, I am going to go dark to light. So I'm going to go darker up high with this dark red and fill in this area and then work lighter from there into oranges, yellows. I may add some purple onto this dark red to even darken it up more. So again, just sort of filling in a larger area here, making sure that I get as smooth coverage as I can. This is one of the downsides too. And I also don't want a real hard edge. I'm going to be fading this. You'll see um, it's one of the benefits of the Copic markers is that they blend together. You can put a lighter over a darker and it'll blend that edge together, which is nice. Um, but the more you sort of layer on your own over the same color, you start to get areas where if it doubles up on top of itself, so if you color like hard to explain without doing it, but so I've colored this. If I go over this now in this little area, that's going to be a slightly darker spot. Um, the more you layer a single color over itself, the darker it will get. So let's do that. And then, yeah, I think I do want to add a little purple there. I think that'll be fun. So I can get got a little guide over here. It shows my dark purple colors. Let's do this one. So again, it's nice. So the Copic markers have the cap, and the cap is relatively close to the color, and it's got a code on it and a name. But for me, I like to, can't really see it's off to the side over here, but I have this little test piece, and I will do, little sections of which color is which so that I can tell, is it more reddish, more bluish? I don't want to just not necessarily trust the cap completely in terms of being like, oh yeah, this is definitely exactly that color. You can also use that little test area there to sort of do like what happens if I mix this color with that color? Do I get a more interesting third color? Does it become sort of more grainy, which will happen sometimes if you're using colors that aren't close enough in value, meaning lighter or darker. So yeah, so that looks obviously pretty rough because the purple is darker. So now I'm coming back in with that dark red, going over the top of that, and this will help to blend in some of this purple. So I get some nice dark shapes up in this sky. And when you're doing this and you're trying to get them to blend, you are using a little bit of pressure. I find like I'm almost scrubbing a little bit to get that ink to reactivate with the alcohol and the new ink and blend together. Um, so, but that's all part of the game and part of the fun. All right, so we got some dark up in there, and now I'll go to my next red, which is a cardinal red, which is my next darkest red. And you might say there's not a big difference, and to be fair, there's not a huge difference here between the dark red and the cardinal red. But I think once we're all done, you're going to see that nice transition from dark to light, and that will work. I'm not particularly worried about going over too much. Some of the things like the clouds, smoke, stuff like that, that's what that is there. I can fix that either with which I will be doing, a harder edge. So I can come in with a thicker pen and thicken up the line of the smoke, um, and fix if any of this red or any other color bleeds over into it. Try to be a little bit careful with the logo. I can't necessarily fix that, um, but I don't have to be perfectly precious. This is a sketch cover, so it's a original hand done piece of artwork, and as such, it's going to look hand done, and that's exactly what we're going for here. All right, let's get to the next one. So uh, with the reds that I have several different reds. The next one I'm going to go with here is called Strong Red, and this is where we're really dipping into. And you notice I'm going to start up higher than where I'm coloring, than the next sort of blank area. And that again is to make it so that I don't have a super hard edge. From color to color, I want more of a smoother gradient transition, which I'm able to do with Copics, which is again cool. And I know there's a lot of different options out there. I've seen using different markers. Copics were sort of one of the earliest or first out of the gate, I think, in terms of having refillable markers, which is really nice. Um, and that is still one of the benefits. They are expensive, but you can get show you, like, this is one of the green refills that I have. You get these refills, and so if I have a large area, I can sort of overload the marker to really have a nice rich flow of ink, um, compared to if I just, you just use it out of the box or it's been used for a little while. So you can kind of do that. Um, the other thing again is just, yeah, it extends the life of the marker, which is really nice. So you can do that. So okay, there's that red. Now we're going to get into a slightly lighter red than that. So hopefully you can kind of see where we're going here with this, and pretty quick we'll be down to the figure of Lobo, which is perfectly fine. That's where we eventually want to be. But yeah, I like to sort of work from back forwards and from dark to light. That's my coloring technique, um, whether I'm doing it here, um, by hand with markers, or if I'm working digitally in Photoshop or something like that. That's my preference. I like to work back background to foreground, um, and then dark to light, and then that way I can really get those shadows and then the highlights popping. And again, if especially with Photoshop, you can color over stuff. Here with markers, yes, I could technically color over them if I had uh, acrylic markers. So acrylic markers is a thing, um, and they're obviously more painterly, right? So they are paint, in a marker format, and would cover up everything, including my black line work. Um, Here with the Copics, at least, the black line work is I can color over that, and it shows through. So if I had a real problem, I really mess something up, I do have some acrylic markers that I can use. I like to use them for final pieces, either like highlighting something, outlining something, things of that nature. I really like that. Now, that all said, I say, as I explained, I like to work from back to front. Well, in this case, I'm going to cut and change that just a little bit, just for the sake of ease. While I have all the red markers out, I'm going to go ahead and color in what else is red. And then that way I don't have to come back and necessarily use them more, um, I can kind of take this big kit and put it away. Um, Actually, I'm trying to think. Do I want to do that? You know what? For the sake of education, for the sake of the video, I'll continue my process. I will work backwards to front, and then I will just break out the red again later. No problem. Um, so that means we have this background smoke. I'm going to go with a gray to start with, and I want to go with warm grays. So with Copic markers, there's several tones of grays. There's warm, cool, neutral. Um, and so for me, I want to use warm grays since they're smoke. To me, something like wood, something burning. So again, I'm going to go with my dark. I'm going to start with a warm 6. So the warm grays are just numbered. The higher the number, the darker they are. So my thought is I'm going to go dark on the edges of the smoke, light to the middle. Um, that's that's the plan I have in my head. And you can see these are a different type of Copic. So these are, I forget what these are called exactly. Let me see if it says on the package here. Copic Classics, where these other ones are the Copic Sketch. So the Copic Classics have this small tip, and then they also have this um, chisel point that you can use. So you can still blend them. They don't have the brush feel, so it's a little more linear in terms of how you're putting down the ink. But for these clouds, that will work just fine. I say clouds, smoke clouds, because Lobo destroys everything everywhere he goes. We all know that. And then some of you may be asking, like, hey, how come there's no shadows? there's no black areas inked in here on the image. So that is because um, I do that afterwards. So yes, when you have Copic markers and you have good paper and you have good pens that you've inked with, theoretically your ink will not bleed with Copic markers. Again, one of the benefits. That's not always the benefit with every marker out there. Some of them, the instant it touches the paper, the ink is going to bleed. Copic is pretty good about that. It will not, as long as you give your ink lines a little bit, and not a lot, but a little bit of time to dry, you'll be fine. Um, but if you get into a very large area where there's a lot of black ink, and then you go over it with a light color, it will sometimes pull some of that black ink into the color, and that's not what I'm looking for here. I don't want to do that. So for me, what I do here is I'm going to do all the coloring, and then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to add black shadows, like in the jacket, his hair, his pants, stuff like that, some of the background. And then in the clouds, I'm going to do some texture rendering with small line work to kind of build up that three-dimensional texture of the clouds. But I didn't want it to really bleed, so I left it out. And then we'll go back and ink over top of the colors. So it's sort of a 3-part. Well, I guess it's maybe 4-part, because I'll start with my sketch, and then from the sketch, I go ahead and I pencil it in, then ink it, then base colors, not base colors, but colors like this, and then final shading, additional rendering, and any effects like highlights, outlines, anything to be painted kind of over the top, splatter, anything like that. That's the process. So that's a timeline on the process. Okay. So from 6, now these go in numerical order. So I have, literally 0 through 10. So 6 is this dark, but I like to skip. So instead of going from 6 to 5, I'm going to go 6 to 4. I don't feel like there's enough difference between the warm grays at actually I'm going to go with the larger chisel tip here. I don't think there's enough difference between 5 and 6 or 5 and 4 to really make a difference. If I had a really, really large area that I was coloring in and I wanted to, I'm talking about like a 11 by 17 paper, and I was going to do a gradient all the way down from the very top of the page all the way to the bottom. Yeah, I might go every number and do that. For this, it doesn't make sense to me. So we're gonna, and because the smoke clouds are round and puffy, I'm working in kind of circular. You can see for the most part, um, circular motions, which is going to help keep that shape. So I don't want a bunch of straight lines in my puffy organic smoke clouds, right? I want rounded shapes, rounded shapes. So there we go. And hopefully it looks like we're still right on, right in the middle of the camera, so that's good. So there we go. There's that. So if that's 4, then the next one will be 2. And that'll probably get us about as light as I want to go. I don't know that I want to go to the 0. Let's see, because this is pretty light. And I might. When it dries, so when you're applying your Copic markers, if you haven't used them before, they will appear darker because it's wet, right? It's alcohol in the ink, which is it's alcohol base. So that's what works, makes them work. However, like I said, it's a little wet. You can feel like when you first touch it, it feels cool to the touch, a little damp. As it dries, it will dry lighter. So for the most part, as dark as you think it is when you first put it on, you're like, ooh, that number 2 is a little darker than I thought. It will not be as dark as you think it will. It will slightly lighten, and a lot of that has to do with the paper quality. This sketch cover paper for DC is actually not terrible. I have dealt with some sketch covers that were terrible. Um, if you are thinking about doing any sketch cover work and you come across a sketch cover that is glossy, just walk away. Don't even think about it. There were a number of early sketch cover attempts where they just used a regular cover stock, which is that glossy cover stock. And yeah, that did not end well. It was like trying to draw with ink on glass. It was terrible. Um, that was that could have been 20 years ago, to be perfectly honest. And now at this point, most of the sketch covers that you're going to find are a pretty good stock, so not have to worry about it. Some are a little toothier, so the grain of the paper is a little toothy, and depending on the media you want to work in, you might have to address that. But otherwise, it's not too bad. All right, let's see here. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the rubble behind Lobo. Again, working from that way to that way. So I'm looking at my other set of marker cards that I have here that I've made to see where I want to go. Because I'm thinking he's a lot of grays and bluish colors and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to go more browns, probably warmer browns, I'm guessing. Maybe like, so I've got this area in here where I've got like this brick brown. I might use some of that. These are good, go together well, and then find a lighter tone. So maybe these three right here would be pretty good for some rubble, and then kind of vary it up. So let's see if I can find these markers here. There's that one. There's that one. And this one. So again, starting dark to light. These are not Coke. So these are these other markers I was talking about that were a gift. They're great. You know, inexpensive. I don't know that they are refillable the way the Copics are. I don't know. I've used them a little bit. They can bleed some again depending on the paper you're using. Um, but for the most part, I found them to be um, pretty comparable, especially if I'm using them for something small area like this where I'm trying to get some darker shadows in, and maybe I don't have this exact color in a Copic, or better yet, the Copics that I have only have that brush tip, and we know the brush tip is not as accurate necessarily as as the fine tip here. So this part's nice. I can get right in there pretty close. So again, the rubble and stuff is supposed to be random. Um, it's just a lot of combination of hard linear shapes and organic soft shapes, so that it looks again random, messy stuff like that. So I'm kind of going with those type things. And hey, if you're checking it out, if you're here in the video and you swing by, say hi. Let me know you're here. I am kind of monitoring chat on the side. Or if you have any questions about the markers, the comic, I don't know that much about. I can't speak to the story. I was not involved in that part there. But if you want to talk about sketch covers or how do they do it, how do they work, stuff like that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that anybody may have. So start there, and then go with this brick color. So again, you can see I can just kind of color over the colors I've already put down. I can color over the line work that I've done. That's not a problem. I'm not worried about being overly specific again with these colors because it's just supposed to be random rubble, some, I guess some stone stuff. I'll do a little bit of this, and then we'll add in some other neutral colors as well. Again, all neutral for the most part. The red in the background is separated, which is fine, but I want Lobo to pop out from the background. So, that's one of the reasons I don't want to put in bright, shiny colors or colors that are going to compete with the colors that I'm going to use for him, which are, again, more blues, more grays, um, stuff like that. So keeping the red, warmer colors behind him will help that blue pop out. That's the goal. And something to really think about. If you're drawing and you're putting together an image that you plan on having it be in color, make sure you know you're planning accurately. Like again, if Lobo is a lot of blues, bluish grays, those colors, the last thing I'd want to do is put him in front of probably, a cloudy ocean scene or something like that because the colors would all blend together. Um, or like, let's say your character is, a good example is like the Flash. So if the Flash is red and yellow, which are the two colors that make up his costume, then the last thing I want to do is put him in front of this same red background. He's just going to get lost there. So if you're trying to think of it in those terms, let me explain to you, if you're not familiar, a little color theory that could help you out. And that is you need to know your color wheels. So your color wheels, if you're not familiar, you have three primary colors. You have your red, yellow, blue, and those colors make all the other colors of the rainbow when you mix them. So if you have a character that's, like I was just talking about the Flash, where the Flash wears red, the last thing you want to do is, like I said, is put him in front of red. So you want to instead put him, um, in front of a green background. That will make that red more vibrant and pop out and really make a big, big difference. So just stuff to think about when you're dealing with coloring that you don't necessarily have to think about when you are just drawing something that's going to remain black and white. So again, I'm still sort of working from dark to light to a degree. I've gone with a different sort of family of brown that I'm using here and kind of mixing in and stuff. But again, there's none of this is specific items. None of this background rubble stuff is a specific thing. So it can kind of be any color. Let's go with the darker behind him. So it's A-OK. Just kind of mix and match these colors into a sort of random pattern, if you will. And then that way, when it's all done, the main focus will be Lobo, and the background will just work as a neutral, which is what we want. Let's see, I want 107 is sand. 107, sand. Let's go with this color. So this particular set of markers, the reason that I dipped into these and gone away from the Copics for this is that for whatever reason, it just has a lot of brown, different brown tones. Some are more in the reddish. Some are a little more yellow. They have like cool brown. Like there's a very wide variety of brown colors in this particular marker set. So for whatever reason, so I was like, okay, well, when I need lots of different shades that are not going to mix together and be separated, then that's what I'm using. But I mean, I definitely do enjoy my my Copic markers a lot. I use them all the time, and we will certainly be getting back to those as we go. So again, with these, I can sort of, because I did the darker, for the most part, the darker first, even if I color over it with a lighter color, it doesn't really hurt anything. So again, one of the advantages of working from dark to light. You can see I'm kind of just moving around essentially at random. I'm just taking the color that I've got in my hand at the moment and looking for places where I haven't used it yet, and then coming over here and um, filling in some areas, looking at it, looking for a new color, filling in some areas, and then that way it's not all bunched together in one space. The browns are spread around, mixed around, etc., which is what we want. Again, just sort of, I guess, what's the term? The term would be creating artificial chaos or artificial um, randomness. 140 and 97. 140, right here together. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So fun, 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 fun. So this is super super zen like. Um, yes, I am using my brain and thinking through, but at the same time, I can kind of zone out a little bit, think of other things. Um, and it's coloring, like what you did, you know, when you're a little kid and you're in grade school, and they're like, okay, it's time to get out your crayons, time to color. Man, those are the best. They're the best time. I love that time. My favorite time of school when I was a little kid. And so yeah, this is kind of like that. It's just adult coloring. I've created my own coloring book image of Lobo, and now I get to color it in, and it is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. So hopefully, if you're watching this video, because you are also interested in coloring your own images, that would be very cool. I try to think of it like painting. To be honest, I'm not a well-versed painter, and that is purely just from a lack of practice with the materials. I'm not particularly good at it. I've done it. I've taken courses on it. When I was in college and taking painting classes as part of my curriculum, great. It was one of those things. Once I got into the flow of it, um, was much better. However, since then, painting is difficult. What I mean by that is painting is you need a lot of space. Depending on the paint you're using, you need to make a mess. You need ventilation. You need room. And for me, that's not always easy to get that. Um, Markers obviously are a lot cleaner, and as well, I'm used to the form factor. It's working like a like a pen or a pencil, which I'm very used to, and as just mentioned, used to coloring, like whether with markers or with crayons or colored pencils or whatever. That form factor is a lot easier than the wild nature of a brush sometimes. But I have been seeing more and more painting videos. And I gotta say, um, I'm a little curious about getting back into painting at some point. Maybe, maybe. Uh, it's been a long time, but it is fun, and I, I just for the most part of a big part of my painting problem is I don't have the patience. I just don't have that patience for it, which is not good. You cannot rush painting. If you're working with, well, if you're working with oil paints, you definitely can't rush it. But here's the problem: oil painting is dangerous. Oil painting requires some dangerous materials, and the paint itself stays wet for a really long time. So if you want to paint over something, you want to put a white highlight on something, whatever it is, whatever you want to do, man, all of a sudden you've got to wait days and days for it to dry. I just don't have that patience, unfortunately. So I'm like, man, I want this right now. Let's see, 2060. Sorry, looking for some more colors. Some more colors. Where would they be? Where is that? 38, 27, 32. Looking for some specific colors here that I'm not seeing in this set. There we go. There's one there. Let's do some of this. But yeah, getting into painting would be fun. I think I would want to start with go back to where it all began and start with the Bob Ross tutorial. I think that would be super fun. Um, I haven't done anything like that in forever, but maybe we'll do that at some point. Just to get back into the flow, reacquaint myself with some equipment, with brushes, palette knives, stuff like that. But again, there's the kicker: do I have time? Whew. I'll tell you, I never have enough time, unfortunately. But I'm sure everybody feels that way. I'm sure you guys all feel the same way. You're like, I would love to do that if I had more time. So we have to make time for stuff like this. All right, let's try this. Yeah, close enough. Fun, fun, fun. Fun, fun, fun. Fun for the whole family. Actually, coloring kind of is fun for the whole family. That was one of the things I used to really love to do when I was a little kid. So I'd love coloring books. Shocker. And go back to this maybe. No, I need a oops. I need a light. I need a light color. I need a light color. Um, So what I was saying, when I was a little kid, what I used to really, really like to do was have a coloring book, and being left-handed, I would um, I would sit on the left side of the page and find that image that I wanted to color, and then I would find, have one of my parents sit on the right side and color the other one. And I loved coloring together on the page, me on one side, one of my parents on the other side, coloring, and then at the end looking, comparing, what they did, what I did. I loved doing that when I was little. I thought that was the best time ever. Okay, so we've got a lot of background. We've got a lot of rocks. We've got a lot of clouds. We've got the red. That's great. So now we're going to start working on Lobo himself. So this is one where, yes, there are parts of him that are in front. The arm is in front. The head is in front of this and that. At this point, I'm looking at him as one big thing, and I'm going to pick the colors I want to work with and work on that. So I'm actually going to start, I believe, with the jacket and the pants, which are a dark grayish blue color. So I'm going to break out dropping stuff all over. I'm going to break out my blues. So this is my collection of Copic blue markers. And I have a feeling that probably the Prussian blue, which is a pretty dark blue, is going to work best. Lobo has it's this leather jacket with one arm ripped off and sort of leather pants. Oops, I forgot a section of background. Haha, see? You always got to watch out. You never know. You're going to miss stuff. Oops, gosh dang it. Keep hitting my light. Let me see how this looks. I don't want that. A little more brown. A little more brown. But a lighter brown. That's always the trick, isn't it? How light is this? That's more of a skin tone. Let's see what's this one. All right, I'll go with that. All right, there we go. Yeah, I'm going to go with, again, I'm going to go with the Prussian blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the entire jacket in blues, but I'm going to go back in over the top, and I'm going to end up putting in a lot of black shadows. So the blue is going to, one of these is a little newer than the other. There we go. The blue is going to work as the highlights of the black leather once the shadows are dropped in there. But for now, it's just easier. I could, so like with the pants, the center part that I put here, I'll mark it little X's here, like right here, that's going to be black. That's going to be all black. So I only have to color the highlights. Sometimes I'll do that if I know exactly where I want the shadows and the highlights and stuff to be. If I'm not 100% sure, I'll do like this, and I'll color it all in, and then I'll add the inking over the top, and then I'm not worried about it. I'm not committed to specific lighting effect or anything like that. Um, I can come in and fix that later if I want. So let's see. And then, yeah, I mean, most of this will probably end up being black um, in the jacket, a lot of it, but that's okay. And I'm leaving around the edge a little bit because I'm going to do one slightly lighter blue tone as well. So this is not the only highlight tone we'll have. Right at the edges we'll do a little bit too. Actually, now I'm thinking of it, I'm gonna so inside here. I'm actually gonna try something a little different. Let's see, this I can go, and again, just do this sort of edge. This can go solid. Anywhere where there's light that could catch that outside edge, as I'm leaving white for right now, that's where I'm going to come in with a slightly lighter blue. So it's working dark to the highlight edge where the light is catching um, the shape of his either the jacket, the body, the legs, etc. You'll see here in a second. So that is the Prussian blue, which is a very nice dark blue. I really like it a lot. I use it for tons of stuff. And then I'm going to go with this really nice, I think. How do I like that? Yeah, I'll go with this. So I'm going to go with this blue to here. And that works pretty well for this stuff. A little bit there. Just a touch there. And you'll see what I'm going to do here in just a second. Very minimal. I don't want him to be super bright. But because the background is red, when you mix red and blue, you get purple. Actually, you know what? What don't I do? Well, no, let me try this first. Can always go over it. So what I'm going to do is get purple. If I can find my collection of purple markers here. And we're going to find the right tone, and that highlight in the back is going to be purple. So let's see. I want to go with, yeah, something like that. I guess I'm EV19. Not in here. B13. Is that whatever? 17. BV17. Let's look at this one and see if I like this color. Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of this with this purple. So it's as if the red light from the background is hitting what would be blue and making it purple as a highlight. And that is working for me. So that's one of the other things that's fun that I've seen some amazing artists do. I don't do myself as well, and that is like mixing colors for effects. Meaning, like somebody I've seen this where people will use purples, greens, stuff like that on like skin tones as shadows or to show reflected light. And sometimes, to be honest, I'm just a little too chicken to do it, but it looks great. So there we go. So there's that part of Lobo's jacket is colored in. Actually, so the purple does not go there. There's this piece sort of underneath the jacket right here that I assumed I would make black, but then I want it casting a shadow over the top of his arm, so I don't want that to like contradict each other. So I'm going to try to find the darkest blue that I have. Should be this one. And I'm going to color this in with a very dark blue. That way it's not solid black, it's just slightly darker than the blue in front of it, hopefully. So we'll see when that dries. If it needs to be a little darker, I can go over that again, multiple layers, and it will darken it up. But that's pretty good there. Now, let's see. Let's do his hair. Um, I'm going with, as you can see, sort of this crazy, wild. There's a bunch of ways to do it. Some people have drawn his hair as dreadlocks. Some people draw it just wild, like wire nest, crazy stuff. I am going with this look, and so I want sort of a bluish gray. His hair's black, so I want a bluish gray color to show as essentially highlights for his hair. And I'm going to start with this darker color here. And again, I'm going to be adding black into the hair so that I can to give it volume, to give it shape, stuff like that. But right now I'm going to color everything in these blue tones that I want to stand out. And I'm going to go with a slightly lighter tone on top of this for the real highlights, but this is a good start for some of that there. And then let's see, let's get a much lighter. Let's go. Let's see, do I want to do this? That might be a little too light. Ooh, I have an idea. What if I did the same thing that I just did with his jacket, but with his hair? What if I went purple? Need a very light bluish purple, which I think I have. And when I fill in the black shadows, it will all come together and make sense. But yeah. Why wouldn't his dark bluish hair be reflecting that reddish purple light? Yeah. Let's get crazy. Let's get crazy with those colors. Let's try some stuff. Okay. Let's see here. Now we're going to do. Let's do his skin, I guess, which is gray, which is a cool. I'm doing it in a cool gray. I think here they did it more of a warm gray. But I'm gonna go with a cooler gray. And so let's see, where are my cool gray colors? Cool gray colors are in this bag. So again, the Copic cool gray colors are noted by numbers, 0 through I think 10. So I don't want to go super dark. So I'm going to start with 5. I'm going to go 5, 3, 1. And if 5 isn't dark enough, I'll come in with 7. In fact, might as well just grab it. That way I'm ready to go. I have cool 9, but that's a little too dark. So we're going to go 5, 3, 1 to start with. Let's see how dark this is. So again, I want to, yeah, this should be fine. This is dark enough. Just adding a little extra to that cast shadow. And then I want to be rounding the shapes here, so underneath areas. So your shoulder, if your shoulder bulges out like he does, I'm pointing to my own shoulder like you can see, but that top part of that, the the roundness of the shoulder. Think of like a ball, and you have a light on top of it. Underneath it is going to be darker, and so that's what I want to do here is get that underneath part much darker where it's not catching the light, and that's going to make it feel more of a rounded form of his arm. And then actually I'm going to use this. I am going to use my C7 because what I want to do is underneath the little chain bits here that wrap around his arm, there are some gaps that you could theoretically see his arm through. So I wanted to color some of these in darker as if the chains are shadowing his arm. So we're going to do a little bit of that. And then the rest of it's fine. I don't need a lot, just a little bit there. All right, now let's go. That's his arm. That's the initial shadow on his arm. Let's go to underneath here. His head is going to cast a pretty big shadow under his chin. So I want to get that. Real important. Cast shadows. Making sure that you're hitting those is super, super important. Okay, same thing. And now he's kind of bent forward, so his upper torso plus the jacket is going to shade a lot of his upper torso here and his abdomen. So once you get past here, pretty much all this is all going to be real dark gray anyway. Same thing, a little there. Oh, and then his face, let's go with that. Shadow this side here. Where his hair is coming down. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to get to the C3. And now we're just going to, again, build on top of the 5, keeping that roundness of the shape as much as possible. Bringing that darker value down a little bit to here. That's going to be black. To the face to blend that. Nose. All right. And then the rest of it is going to be the C1, which is the bright spots of his arm, his skin where it's catching the light. So all the top of this forearm. Go. So anything I had not hit already, we're going to go in with that C1, which is our light cool gray. And there's all the areas that are catching that light. Cool. And again, it looks darker than it will be. It will dry lighter as that alcohol evaporates from the page. So there's the Lobo skin colors. Let's go actually. I have some other. Let me look at this. I want to go with cool gray, warm grays, blue grays, green grays. I want to go with. I'm going to try this for the cigar smoke, and I'm going to make it a slightly. Well, let me get this one darker than this is BG1. Let's go with BG3. Let's try this. So again, showing the outside edge of the cigar smoke as slightly darker, so that'll have a more lit the light capturing in the center as the smoke moves away. So very, very thin line there. And then we'll go with this one here like this. Again, kind of going over the top of the other blue-gray that I just put down, again, to try to blend and fade them together so there's not a very hard line. You can see it's working pretty well with these markers. I think they have a tendency to, like I said, to bleed a little bit, maybe more than the Copics would. And so going over the top of each other like that, the same way I would with Copics, is really blending that edge. I like the effect I'm getting here, so so far I'm happy with that. Leaving the center white, that works great. Oops, there we go. And that is something to note I have found is when I first started coloring with markers, I'd be like, well, this is red. And if I need a slightly more purpley red tone or something, I've got to buy that tone. And what I have found out is that is certainly not the case. With this, I have been able to mix and match, and you find like you mix these two colors together, and the third color that they make is exactly what you're looking for. So that works for me. Oops, I forgot something, and that is, let's see, there's this gap through the hole in his hook, and so you would see his skin through there. So let's do that. Let's see. Let's get back to reds and yellows real quick. I am going to give him a yellow. I'll go with this color, kind of a yellowy orange trim on the jacket. It's not gold per se, but just a little color to pop off. Again, when so much is going to be blues, grays, and blue in that tone, those cooler tones, it's nice to have just that little bit of yellow there. And then he does have these stars on his knees, and I believe they are yellow as well. So I'm just going to go with yellow on these. If somebody sees this and says, no, that's wrong. The stars on his knees aren't yellow. The stars on his knees are yellow on my book. Sorry. Uh, if that's the detail that really throws you off, my apologies. But hopefully that's not the case. So a little bit of yellow, and then again red for his eyes. So we're going to go in with a very tight red. The good thing is there is these black sort of triangle-y shapes around his eyes, so even if I had messed that up, not a big deal. A little ember in his cigarettes. Okay. Let's see. Let's work next on the chain around his arm. Let's go with that next. So again, we have different grays, and in this case, instead of the cool grays that we used, we're going to use a neutral gray. And I know it sounds silly to be like, what's the difference? You'd be surprised. The difference is fairly significant. I think you'll hopefully see it here as I start to apply these colors. So again, going with alternating. So I've got 6, 4, and 2. So I'm going to start with my darkest chain, which is going to be kind of down in this area. And I'm not coloring every single link. As you can see, I'm just sort of adding a general shadow to where the underside will be, what's a little bit, where it'd be further away from the light. and then I'll come in over the top with lighter colors. And so maybe you're asking about the hands. I don't know. Maybe you're like, why'd you leave just this big white blob where his hands are? That is because Lobo is a bounty hunter and notorious killer. Um, he's the last of his people because he killed everybody else. It's just sort of the species, the alien species he comes from. And so, yeah, so I'm going to have his hands covered in gloves of blood because it just felt, to me, just felt very Lobo. Um, that this is the scene after he has just massacred a bunch of aliens. So, again, that being the brightest red will really pop out very well. I suppose I could, you know what, maybe we'll do that. I'm trying to think. Do I want to make it red blood? Do I want to make it green blood? Like it's alien, maybe? Some options there. Some options there. My original thought was it's red, but I don't have any green on here. The green would really pop, I'll say that. Hmm. Choices, choices. I'm not going to worry about that right this second. I am going to continue to work on the boots. So I'm going to look at my reference and see. I think they're just grays. Yeah, they're kind of dark gray. Dark gray boots, black underneath. Okay. So I'm going to, again, work in some blues. I'm going to start, I think what I'm going to do, the lower part of the boot, the knee pads are light, slightly lighter color, and then typically it looks like the bottom part is black. And so I'm going to just add a little bit of blue, essentially highlight, and then we'll color in. The rest will be shaded in black, which is fine for the boots. So I'm going to start with, again, I think let's look at, do I want to go with smoky blue? Let's go with smoky blue. So I'm going to go with smoky blue. And then I think what I'm going to do is then go over this blue tone with more grays. So again, I'll probably go with those neutral grays, similar to what I did with the chains. And I will simply essentially gray up the blue, so make it even grayer. But I like the blue undertone to it as far as like a shadow and stuff. Um, so that should work as well. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that also, and we'll see how it goes because it's all like our man Bob Ross used to say, it's all happy little accidents. There's no mistakes. It's just happy little accidents. And that's what we're going with. So let's get back to our neutral grays. Let's get that neutral gray 4, I think is the right tone for this. Let's start there. Yeah, so you can see when you layer the gray over the blue, how that works. And then as I bring it up past it, you have the pure neutral gray, but it is a different color below where you've got it's layering over the blue. So that is one of the things that is great about these markers, be it Copic or other alcohol markers that you can layer, is that again, like I can have a blue color, a gray color, and then a mix of the two, and it gives me a whole third color, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted here because I didn't have the exact pen with the exact tone in my mind that I was looking for, but this combination gets me to that spot. So that is perfect. Oops. And then we'll go a little, sorry, a little bit there. Let me get the gray 2, which is that lighter neutral gray. We're going to go with that for the rest of the knee pads. So yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience drawing Lobo before. This is probably only the, I don't know, second or third time that I've drawn the character. And every time I'm drawing a character I'm not really super familiar with, I'll sit down, I'll get reference. I look at the internet, I look at images, and I'm like, okay, what do I want this, how do I want this character to look? And yeah, sure enough, there is no there is no default Lobo design. It seems like everybody who draws Lobo draws him different every time, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I was like, oh boy. So I kind of picked what I liked, picked what I thought worked best with the character. And so, yeah, that's how I got to this particular design. It's sort of a mix and match of all the all the classics when it comes to artists that have done versions of Lobo. So it's kind of a best of, if you will, version, but it's my version, and hopefully that's fun. Okay, he's got this. This is just like the cuff of his glove, and actually, let's do that. This would be underneath his glove. Um, yeah. So I'm not. Excuse me. So now I come to the moment of decision. Red blood or green blood? Gosh dang it. Keep bumping stuff. Red blood or green blood? Will it read as... It'll read as blood if it's green, right? Get that. That way, red's a little brutal, right? In the comic here, does he... I don't think he kills anybody. I don't see it. Boy, that's a tough choice. Red or green? Both would look good. Bright green. Be very cool. Here's the thing. When in doubt, go with your first gut instinct. Drew this with the idea that he is covered in red blood. And that's what I'm going with. So maybe green was the way to go. Only time will tell. But we're going to go with red. And again, building up from the darkest areas, trying to get organic shapes, not rounded or not square, not perfectly geometric shaped, nothing like that. So yeah. All right. That's that. Again, building up dark to light like we did with the background. All right. My apologies to anybody that finds finds the red a little difficult or a little too much. Again, my apologies. Lobo's Lobo. I didn't make the character. Don't blame me. Right? But that's what makes them fun. Characters like Lobo, Deadpool, Wolverine, the characters you know, your Clint Eastwood cowboys, your John Waynes, your et cetera, et cetera. They are the people that get to say and do what we all wish we could say and do sometimes. And that's what makes them so successful in pop culture. Actually, it doesn't matter because that's all going to be black. That'll be covered up. So I don't have to be precious about that. That's fine. Okay, going with a slightly lighter red. This will be, I think, about as light as I'm going to get with it. That's almost a little orangey. I don't know if I like that. Let's look at this one instead. Still a little orangey. That's really orangey. All right, well. All right, go with this one. And then I'll go in, like I said, at the end with white, and I'll add some highlights because it's supposed to be, we want it to look shiny, reflective, liquidy, really add to that yuck factor. But that's, again, that's who Lobo is. Add some red on here. We will. Now I have, again, with the acrylic paint pens, I can go over the top and I can add a lot more if I want. More flex, more more gore, more etc. Up over the top. So, I mean, right here, theoretically, this is air quotes colored in. And what I mean by that is the next step, all the color work that I need to do is here. What's going to be next is the black ink. Unless there's anything I want to add. Actually, why don't I add a little bit? I'm going to go back to that purple highlight motif. Get a very, very light purple to kind of go over this gray a little bit. Again, it's picking up some red from the light from the background. So you got a little purple in there, which is fine. And yeah, then for the most part, I'm pretty well done. The coloring, and now I'll give it just a little bit to dry, and I will come back in with my black ink and my pens, and we'll go ahead and we'll finish inking in all the shadows and all that kind of stuff. So you can see I'm adding this purple. I like this light purple as a little bit of depth to the shadows. That's all. Uh, and yeah, and then we'll fill in all the black lines. I will thicken up. These are called the contour lines, which are the outlines around Lobo. I'll thicken those up so that they're more bold. Right now, all the lines are the same kind of weight. Um, I'll thicken up the lines around him, which will help separate him from the background, and then be adding in some rendering, which is shading, hatching, texture stuff on the background on him, things of that nature. And when I'm all done, I'll take a photo and I'll put it up so everybody can see. But this has been a live stream. Like I said, I don't do a lot of live streams, so I thought I would give this a shot here for you to see my coloring technique on a sketch cover like Lobo. So keep your eyes open to my social medias and you'll see this in its completion here pretty soon, hopefully this evening. So thanks for everybody who checked this out, whether you checked it out at the time or you were looking later on a replay. Thank you so much for doing that. And don't forget to check out the channel. There's a lot of stuff in here. If you like art tutorials, let me know. I'd be happy to do more. I do have mostly my review streams. So what I do is I have a number of different playlists here where you can go see me review the art of old comics. And if you do subscribe to the channel, there is a chance you can win some artwork as well. So that's explained in every one of those videos. So maybe think about checking those out. Let me know what you think. And thanks for dropping by, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.